talk about censorship, basically talk a lot about government censorship, but we'll talk about more today. Although all these corporations in one way or another are connected to the government, I think Amazon's the #1 contractor in the world now. I know Google is the #1 robotics contractor. They're all connected to the government in some way, but basically the impetus for censorship and thought control are coming from these private corporations, or semi-private. Next slide. As libertarians and free market advocates, we're concerned about government power and its excessiveness, but the corporate sector is driving this march toward Big Brother. It's Google, it's Amazon, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, Yahoo. They're all in on it. They're all working with the feds. They all want those contracts, and they know if they don't enforce Big Brother, they won't get them. So that's where it's coming from, and they're basically trying to use the mob of leftists, and these corporations are basically taking this mob of leftists and saying that they're the organic grassroots support for the censorship, but it's really all top-down. And more or less, they are working for their paymasters. They are getting federal contracts in a million different ways. Next slide. So for the last year or so, I've been publishing nationally the Liberty Conservative magazine. Grassroots Ron Paul supporters created it back in 2012, joined it back in 2016, and just really wanted to hold the libertarian movement accountable. In the past few years, libertarian movement has waned a great deal, as I'm sure we all realize, and I've noticed the corruption spreading and getting worse, so I just wanted to hold the liberty movement accountable as best I could. So I thought I could work pretty well in that niche, but I didn't realize that my work would become nationally relevant outside of the libertarian niche movement. So I was mistaken, especially with Big Brother coming around the bend. I was kind of caught up in the middle of that, as I'll explain right now. So in Charlottesville, Unite the Right happened. I'm not sure how much you know about that. Depending on what you saw online or in the media, you'll have two completely different takes. But basically a group of pro-Confederate monument people showed up, and it turned into a total riot and mayhem, and people died, and it was complete chaos. And one of the people who was planned to speak at that rally is James Alsop. He is a former contributor at the Liberty Conservative magazine. He left, started his own YouTube channel, and it has like 200, 300,000 followers now, so he really blew up. And then he was going to speak at the rally in Charlottesville. Afterwards, all the people who were slated as speakers to that event really started to get censored like crazy. So, and he was one of them. So he started getting censored. So Google tells us at the Liberty Conservative, we don't. He hasn't contributed in like a year. If we don't go back to that article that was like from a year and a half ago that he contributed and delete it, we're going to be choked off from our ad platform, from all the money we have through Google. And there are other ad platforms, but none of them pay as much as Google. And considering we're a small independent publisher, we really need that money. So we don't have angel donors or anything like that, so we had to comply, although the article is archived and still available. So unfortunately, we had to comply with that. And this is the crazy thing. This is what they said. Basically that it was an ominous threat. If you don't censor yourself continuously, we will be back and we will threaten you again. So yeah, to reduce the likelihood of future warnings from us, we suggest that you review all your sites for compliance. So, wow. You know what that means. Censor yourself or be cut off. So we responded, even though unfortunately we had to censor that article, we blew it up. We said, here's what they're doing. This is what they're going to be doing to censor everyone from now on. And we put up the full email that Google sent us. And it started to gain traction. I think the first person to run it was Milo Yiannopoulos, and then there was a few others, and then PJ Media got their hands on it. And I guess Drudge likes PJ Media because that was up on the Drudge Report for 2 straight days. And that gets like 100, I think almost 1 billion hits a month, hundreds of millions of unique hits per month, so hundreds of millions of different people. So we got about presumably millions of people read that article, and maybe even tens of millions. So it really got out there, and Drudge really loved it, and it was the biggest. It wasn't really a big story for the Liberty Conservative because the PJ Media guy just took a bunch of quotes from me and from my article, and so it was like Shane Trejo says this, Shane Trejo says that. So it was really better for me. Really good. But yeah, it was very cool. So they quoted me, put like all my quotes in there. and talked about the whole situation and added even additional context. So yeah, it really went well, and yeah, I mentioned this last time, but yeah, it has me as Media Relations Director of Republican Liberty Caucus of Michigan. They're trying to kick me out of the group right now, nationally. So I was able to get them get more pub than they have in years just by writing one simple blog. So I got a kick out of that. But yeah, so that's good news. We're getting the word out there, and although Google and Facebook and the rest of them are desperate to censor, they really don't have they have the capability to do it, but the public's against them. The public knows what they're doing, and the public's wide awake, and at least a large percentage of the public. Next slide. And here are some other things that have happened recently, some other censorship that we've experienced. I did a presentation about Brink Lindsay of the Cato Institute. He had released a public condemnation of Ron Paul. We did a TLC article about it, bashing him, and everyone who shared it immediately started getting banned from being able to post on Facebook for 24 to 48 hours. And it was a bunch of different weird error messages, none of which made sense, none of which were congruent. So it was obvious that they were just censoring us. Then it gets worse. We had an article about Equifax. You hear about how Equifax screwed everything up, screwed the pooch? Well, it turns out like their chief security officer got like a degree in feminist studies at like, you know, God knows where. So we figured that out. We put a story up. It starts to go viral, and then we're choked off. People who post in groups are banned from posting it right as it's going viral. Then another one we did about a friend of mine, Taylor Ragg, from Kentucky, who some illegal immigrant posted at her school. This immigrant posted at his school that she was illegal and proud. So he took that screenshot of that and posted in a bunch of conservative groups. If she's so proud, let's get the word out about her. So after that happened, she released a whining, crying video. The kid was harassed and terrorized, and then removed from the school for just sharing what she said. So scary stuff, and that was one that was about to go viral. Lots of interest in that story, and then boom, choked off. Can't post in groups at all. And one time I posted something, I got banned for a week. As soon as the week was over, I go to post again. I post 2 times, banned for 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks ended today, posted again, banned this time for 4 hours. I don't know why they reduced it, but now it's every time I post in a group on Facebook, I'm banned immediately if it's from the Liberty Conservative. So yeah, it's getting bad, and the bad is this is Big Brother. We're seeing it in its in its full form in certain websites, and this is even worse for the big dogs, like the groups that were involved in that Charlottesville protest. One of the websites. They can't get on the web. They have to go on the dark web to even have a website. And they've tried going, and it's almost amusing. It's comical because this website's gone from like they were in Iceland. They had an Iceland server. They had an Australian server. They literally go into every state, and they're getting banned in every country to even have a web server. So it's just absurd. So they don't want you to even be able to get a domain name if you're a conservative. They don't want you to be able to spread your opinion without being fired from your job if you're a conservative. So this is Big Brother, this is the New World Order, and it's here. The good news is, though, they're desperate. Trump really hurt them. Ron Paul said earlier about reservations regarding Trump that I agree with, but at the same time, he's really hurting the left. They don't know how to deal with this dude. And that's where he really has done a great job in terms of wounding the left in a way that I don't know if they'll ever be able to recover. I hope they don't. But so they're desperate now. They just lost a big election, and they're down, and now they're trying to censor when they're not on top. So that's good. They're down, and they're having to show their true colors when they're down. And they certainly don't have a handle on information anymore. Mainstream media, people laugh at that now. People laugh at that. I read in the New York Times, of all places, the New York Times had to report that Alex Jones gets more views than the New York Times. So that's hilarious and awesome. And so yeah, they lost the handle on the info. Breitbart and InfoWars are huge. There's no putting the cat back in the there's no putting the cat back in the bag. So I think there's a lot to be happy about. And if my small blog can just reach tens of millions on any given day, while the mainstream media is collapsing and bankrupt, this is a great trend, and it's just getting started. So, and Twitter is huge, and the more they censor, the more it just proves us right. So they're coming at us so hard, and it sucks, but remember, it's darkest before the dawn, and they're not looking too good. They're not looking too good right now, and we just got to keep our wits about us and keep fighting. Stay in the fight, like Ron Paul said. Stay in the fight. Don't give up, and I think we'll win in the end. Thank you.
Very good.